Great show today. Lots of strong language being used. The term fascist is being used by the left to describe the right, and sometimes by the right to describe the left. The president recently called half of America semi-fascist. What does this term mean, and does it apply to what we're seeing in America today? A historian of the Soviet Union will join us today for that conversation. Also, only days after California announced they would ban the sale of gas-powered vehicles in 2035, they told people not to charge their electric vehicles because they take too much power. What in the world is going on in California? We'll tell you more about that. Also, the president's speech insulted a lot of Americans. And how angry should you be? That's the conversation we'll have in our Worldview segment coming up at the end of the show. But first, our headlines for today. President Biden spoke to the nation from Philadelphia last night, delivering what was objectively an angry and divisive speech that seemed to have the singular goal of villainizing his political opponents as a threat to democracy and a stain on the soul of the nation.
America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
What was President Biden hoping to accomplish with the speech, and did he pull it off? Joining me now to discuss his thoughts on the president's speech is Representative Bob Good. He serves on the U.S. House Committee on Education and Labor, the House Budget Committee, and he represents the 5th District of Virginia. Congressman Good, good to see you today.
Great to be with you, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
First, just your reaction to the president's speech from last night.
It's really incredible that he would take a fatalistic view towards half of the country. I think Joe Biden's definition of extremism is if you don't agree with him. He kept talking about the assault on the democracy. And I wanted to hand him a 12th grade government book to let him know we're a constitutional republic. But this is a president who has no regard for the Constitution that he talked about in the speech. This is a president who said, a year ago, he didn't have the constitutional authority to extend the eviction moratorium, and he did it anyway. He said about a year ago, he didn't have the constitutional authority to transfer student loan debt to those who didn't incur it. And that was echoed by Nancy Pelosi and his education secretary, and he did it anyway. This is a president who is bound to protect the United States from invasion. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution requires that, and he is not doing that. And it's for that reason that he deserves to be impeached. But this was the most dishonest, divisive, desperate speech I think I've ever seen a president make. And to write off half of the country, to say, hey, you're insignificant, you don't matter, essentially, you're fascist, you're extremist, and to write them off like that to write us off like that is really incredible. A president would do that.
And a lot of people have shared similar feelings. And one of the things that was remarkable about it is how lacking in apparent policy purpose it had. There's no national crisis. There's been no hurricane. There's been no terror strike that would justify a primetime speech of this nature. And it really did appear to be solely for the purpose of targeting and maligning really his political opponents. And during the speech, President Biden gave us some clues as to who he thinks we as a country should be afraid of. Let's play clip 1.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
Now, Congressman Good, I would disagree with the way he frames those issues, but he just seems to be describing social conservatives. Is it fair to suggest, based on those remarks, that he thinks social conservatives are dangerous?
This is the arsonist who blames others for causing the fire. He accuses his opponents of what he does. This is the president who's created the greatest assault on our privacy that we've ever seen. The privacy of our ability to make our own healthcare decisions, disclose whether or not we've gotten a vaccine. This is the president who's trampled on freedoms like we've never seen: freedom of worship, freedom of assembly, freedom of travel, freedom of movement, freedom to earn a living, to operate your business, to go to work, to keep your job, to go to school, to keep your kids in school. That's what this president has done. And again, he continues to accuse his enemies of that which he does.
Well, to that point of accusing his enemies of that which he does, Biden said one of the biggest problems is those who refuse to accept free and fair elections. Let's play clip 8.
Stand by and watch. I will not, the will of the American people, be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
Now, Congressman Good, we don't have to go back very far in history to remember a time when President Biden and many members of his party had difficulty accepting the results of the election. Let's play clip 9.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put in office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
Now, Congressman Good, among those voices, we heard Hillary Clinton, Jerry Nadler, Representative John Lewis, Representative Jamie Raskin, and Sheila Jackson Lee and Barbara Lee. Begs the question, by Joe Biden's standard, does he think Hillary Clinton is a threat to democracy?
Well, this president, because of him and his administration, we no longer have confidence in our Department of Justice, in our federal law enforcement agencies, our health agencies, and the integrity and accuracy of our elections. So you would think that anybody that was concerned about what happened in November of 20, or for that matter, January of 21, would want to do everything they could to restore full faith and credit in the accuracy and integrity of our elections, and would work for laws and standards that would ensure that we have voter ID, that we don't have unsolicited mass mail balloting, that we don't have third-party handling of ballots or ballot harvesting. We don't allow non-citizens to vote. But yet the Democrat Party and Joe Biden are against all of those things. So it's no wonder that the American people don't have confidence in our elections. And certainly they facilitated that or initiated that with how they approached the results of 2016.
And it does seem ironic to me, and I know others, that those who are concerned with election integrity and those who want to make sure that ballots can be verified and that they aren't going places where they're going to be filled out and returned by people who aren't actually legal to vote, those concerns are the threat to democracy. It's not the potential for sloppy elections that is the threat to democracy. But Congressman Good, I've got a theory that I want to run by you because in recent years, the most popular way to malign Republicans heading into an election is to accuse them of being racist. Now, we've seen in recent cycles how especially in the Hispanic community and the Black community, increasingly those votes are moving to the right. Do you think it's possible that they've seen that the accusations of racism are no longer sticking, so challenging and accusing Republicans of being a threat to democracy is the new accusation of racism?
I think you're right. No country in the history of the world has been more welcoming to minorities, to people of all racial backgrounds, all ethnicities, all national origins, have given more upward mobility, opportunity. That's why people are coming from all over the world, even illegally, from all colors and races and backgrounds to flood into our country because we are the most welcoming society. Where else in the history of the world has a minority risen to the highest office of the land, been elected twice over, even despite doing an awful job in his first term? He got reelected second term because Americans didn't care what he looked like or what his race was based upon. So the jig is up. The Democrat Party is being exposed, and you're going to see more minorities vote for Republicans this November than I think you've seen in a very long time.
Now, Congressman Good, the title of his speech was interesting because President Biden says that we are in a battle for the soul of our nation. And he, of course, wants to be on the side of defending the soul of our nation. Do you agree? I mean, first, how do we know what is the soul of our nation and what is the battle over that?
Well, the fact that the president would use the resources of the White House and the federal government to conduct this speech with your tax dollars for what was clearly a political campaign speech, to do it with the Marines behind him, which is unprecedented for him to do that for political purposes. But it's this president who is assaulting the soul of the nation. everything that we hold dear is at stake in this election, whether it's our national security, our economic security, the values, how we're going to raise our children. Life is on the ballot this election. A strong military is on the ballot in this election. Our standing on the national stage, how we heat our homes and what kind of cars we can drive. Think about it. This is an administration who thinks they should be able to tell us what kind of a car we can drive. There's never been more trampling on our freedoms than has happened in the first 2 years of this Biden administration. And that, the essence of what makes America a nation of constitutional republic, of free people, everyone's equal under the law, that is on the ballot here in November.
Also, in Biden's speech, and frankly, the entire the Democratic messaging machine is still trying to make much of January 6th. Now, I don't like whataboutism. The idea that, oh, well, they did something, we did something bad, well, they did something bad too, so it's okay, right? But in recent history, we know January 6th happened. We see footage of it all the time. We also know that Justice Kavanaugh was targeted by an assassin. We know that Steve Scalise was shot during a softball practice by a Bernie Sanders supporter. Of course, none of this makes anything else excusable. Why can't we? Why is it difficult to just hold hands across the aisle for the president to stand up and say, violence is bad? It's not MAGA Republicans. It's not Bernie Sanders supporters. Violence from anywhere is bad. We should stop. Why does that seem so difficult to do?
I think it's because, Joseph, that they're failing on every issue. As you said, it goes back to what the speech was about. He can't talk about the economy. He can't talk about the border. He can't talk about inflation or gas prices or grocery prices. He can't talk about rapidly rising crime. He can't talk about a failure in Afghanistan or the weakening of our military on the national stage. He can't talk about academics or the education of our children, what's going on in our schools and the loss of learning, what they did in the name of COVID. So it's January 6th forever. Everything's racist. Everything's climate extremism to try to scare folks. The sky is falling literally, and everything is COVID forever. That's why they resort to, as you said, calling their enemies a racist. That's the default line, or now a fascist as well.
Congressman Good, what happens in the next month, 2 months between now and the election?
Well, I think the American people, the veil has been lifted. They realize who the Democrat Party is. This is not the Democrat Party of our parents and our grandparents. This is the party of extremism. This is the party of climate extremism, anti-fossil fuels, anti-reliable energy. This is the party of open borders, the party of, indoctrinating our kids instead of educating them. And I think the American people are going to reject it boldly and resoundingly on November 8th. You're going to see a strong Republican majority.
Congressman Bob Good, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Joseph. Great to be with you.